This is CCTV footage showing Shafiqul Islam Kajol leaving his office on 10th March 2020. It was the last known footage of Kajol before he disappeared.
It was just another day on 10th March. We woke up hearing him at the dining table having breakfast. We don't really have too much conversations. Things we discuss is who is going to bring Poshi home, my younger sister. He just then gets ready and goes out. And I just go to university and finish my day. Came back around 11 p.m. My mother opened the door. She asked, "Where is your father?"
The question would haunt the family for the next 53 days. Kajol is a photojournalist and the founder and editor of Daily Pokhokal, which started as a bi-weekly magazine in 2011. On 10th March, he vanished, joining a growing list of journalists in Bangladesh allegedly targeted by security forces. Since 2009, 553 people fell victim to enforced disappearances. As many as 62 were found dead. Others, like Kajol, were found days, weeks, even months later. This is the story of one such disappearance and what it tells us about Bangladesh's war on the media.
"53 days now sounds a bit small, like it was not even 2 months, but living it moment by moment, it was almost like impossible to think of the next day.
Kajol vanished shortly after a prominent politician with Bangladesh's ruling party, the Awami League, filed a police complaint against him over a Facebook post. That post, which has since been scrubbed, was a shared news report that detailed an alleged connection between a sex trafficking ring and a woman formerly affiliated with the ruling Awami League. The complaint was filed on March 9th. He disappeared the next day. For Kajol's family, it was the start of a long period of uncertainty and fear.
I stayed awake that night till 4 a.m. and my mother didn't go to sleep at all. While I was awake, I was thinking that maybe if I wait long enough, either he's going to come back home and it's going to be like a funny story, like we were worried for nothing and everything would just be normal. We decided to file a general diary, which is the first police report saying that my father is missing. I went to a few hospitals, emergency wards, wondering if he had an accident or something. And then sort of trying to look for him every day, joining in on protests in Human Change. On 18th, we got to see a CCTV footage. There were people meddling with his motorcycle. Like 5 to 6 people, they were all monitoring my father's motorcycle. They knew what they were doing really clearly. They weren't scared or anything. The last thing we saw is him riding away in that motorcycle that they messed with. And someone also runs up to the motorcycle that can also be seen. You don't expect to see something like this in real person.
আজকে যদি বাবা কথাটা কোনোভাবে শুনে, আমি বলতে চাই, বাবা তোমাকে আমি অনেক ভালোবাসি। তুমি যেভাবে পারো, যে অবস্থায় আছো সেখান থেকে চেষ্টা করো আমাদের কাছে চলে আসো।
Like the first days were the most difficult. People would say, okay, let's do a human chain or something on Wednesday or something. And the first question that would come to my mind that, so he's not going to come back till Wednesday? It would get me off balance. I knew from my heart that something wrong happened. Someone took it.
A single law is at the center of Kajol's disappearance, the Digital Security Act. The law was proposed as a tool to combat the spread of what's become an international problem, fake news. But the law's critics say that the Digital Security Act is in reality a tool used by the ruling party to punish political opponents and silence journalists. Since the law was passed in 2018, over 1,000 people, including journalists, activists, and cartoonists, had been arrested over stories and social media posts. Nearly all were critical of Bangladesh's ruling party. And in the first 6 months of 2020, 113 cases had been filed and 208 people had been brought up on charges under the Digital Security Act. 53 of those people were journalists. Today, Bangladesh ranks as one of the worst in the world for press freedom, and the law has had a chilling effect.
The Digital Security Act does address a legitimate problem, which is there is crime, actual crime that takes place on the internet. It's reasonable for nations to have laws to address some of those crimes. However, it should not be used as a tool against freedom of speech. It should not be a tool that allows governments to imprison anyone, frankly, but especially journalists. So it leads to self-censorship, leads them to avoid reporting on controversial topics. And there's a long list of what those topics may include, especially reporting on the prime minister, on security issues, on religious issues. It hobbles the press.
From a really young age, he had always been like an activist. He just never was one to stand injustice and like wrongdoings. So he was pretty vocal about that. Now you see, reading the news and read about him, it seems like he was his problem or criticism was always about the government, but it's not like that. He saw social injustice and something that could be fixed. He was always thinking about how to make change.
Other human rights groups have documented the disappearance of politicians and human rights activists and traced it to some branch of the security forces. And so there's a presumption that some branch of the security force is responsible for the disappearance of Kajol. But we can't say that with any certainty. We don't know exactly. But it certainly fits a pattern of people who get in trouble being disappeared, and it's a very serious human rights issue.
Kajol vanished for 53 days, reappearing oddly enough on World Press Freedom Day. And that wasn't the only thing about Kajol's sudden resurfacing that was bizarre. He was found some 250 kilometers away from his home near Bangladesh's border with India. He was bound, blindfolded, but happy to be found alive.
বাবার সাথে একটু আগে আমার যশোর চিফ ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট কোর্টে দেখা হলো। বাবা জীবিত আছে, এই যে বাবা। চিন্তা করো না, এদিকে সব ব্যবস্থা হয়ে গেছে, তোমার এখানে বেশি দিন থাকা লাগবে না।
At 2:48 a.m., a call comes to my mother's phone. I received it. Finally, I got to speak to my father. He just said, "Beche berote parlam, etai beshi. Take the next bus at sunrise." So he obviously didn't know the country was still into lockdown and public transport and everything was still not in functioning. They later on decided to file a case against my father for illegal trespassing, for him entering Bangladesh without a passport from India.
The trespassing charge was just the start. Within hours of being released on bail, Kajol was back in a cell. This time under a section of the penal code that allows the police to arrest and hold people without charging them for up to 15 days. 52 days later, Kajol was shown arrested in the first Digital Security Act case and denied bail. He has subsequently been shown arrested under 2 other Digital Security Act cases. A key part of the police's case, Kajol's Facebook post.
My father is the only one arrested in that case out of 32. The people who made the report, the editor of the newspaper, they're both out.
What we believe is that there's some element of personal revenge by someone in a powerful position. We don't know who it is, but Kajol, like any journalist, maintained contacts, senior levels in the government, and we believe something there went sour, and so we believe the act in this case is being used as an element of personal revenge for a journalist who's really just doing his job.
We're still in shock. We never imagined to go through this hardship from life. The only major hardship we had gone through before was when my father was diagnosed with cancer. Now with my father behind bars, we're all waiting for his safe return. But I would ask anyone hearing this, ask yourself, how do you think this happens, that you have to just be glad that your family member is alive, not dead, and in jail?
Trends against press freedom have been, we're very worrisome in Bangladesh, and there's no indication that they're going to change course. We are not going to give up trying to promote press freedom there, and I know that there are many brave journalists in Bangladesh who are willing to push this forward.